Hello, it's me, the Viper PNG guy, and I'm back again to talk about Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. But today I'm going to talk about it in a competitive sense, because I've done that with Save the Earth, but I haven't done that with Destroy All Monsters Melee yet. And with the remaster coming out, I thought the best way to start doing that would be with a tier list to talk about every single character, and yeah, just to say what I want to say about him and tell you all how I feel about each character. Something I do want to mention, this tier list is ordered, and also I am using a competitive rule set I made that I've used for my tournament, which I am going to send those VODs out and have them on the channel very, very soon. And I'm using that as I'm talking about the characters, because that is the rule set I'm using, and this is the competitive rule set, competitive tier list, sorry. And yeah, so that's about it I just wanted to say, and I hope you all enjoy the video. Goodbye. But actually, I'll be back, and, well, now. So, let's start with the worst character in the game, by far, in Gigan. So, I know a lot of people have said to me personally anyway, that why, Gigan's A tier, maybe even I've seen every once in a while an S tier, but usually it's around that A tier that, even with other tier lists online, that's kind of what I see. And, the problem with that is, that's just not really true. When you really look at the game in a competitive way, and you start to realize, okay, this move has this kind of effect, or this move is jump cancelable, and I can get this OTG combo from this character. Gigan doesn't really have any of that a lot of other characters have. His neutral is terrible. He has barely any way of getting in. His two ways of getting combos, down fierce and grab, it being his two main ways, are terrible because, one, his grab is the slowest in the game and is the easiest to mash out of, because if you did not know, you can mash out of grabs in Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee before your opponent can throw you. And depending on the character, which this is very important, of course, but depending on the character, it's easier or harder to mash out of. Some characters, it's, you really can only do it when you read your opponent's grab, that your opponent is going to grab you. That's usually how a lot of them are, but not with Gigan. Gigan's grab is so slow that if you grab him, you're 9 times out of 10 you're getting mashed out of against a player who knows how to mash and and all that. So he's not really going to get that. And then down fierce, the problem with it is really slow. So it's really slow. It's very inconsistent where it has no tracking, so if you just jump away, you're not getting it. You're just going to put you in a bad spot, and it is, again, very reactable. It's just not a very good move, but it is one of Gigan's best, which is really sad, because it just doesn't work, and even when you're closer to the opponent, it'll just go to the side, it'll push past the opponent, and then you don't hit it. So it's really, really hard to get that hit. It is jump cancelable, so you have some mix-up with it, but again, that's just a very universal mix-up that a lot of characters can do with a lot of their moves. It is a pretty decent one on Gigan, I will give him that, but that's like the only, I guess, positive. That, and I will say he does have some pretty fast jumps, but that's not really something I'm like, hey, he has that. That must make him a good character. It's not. Even when he gets that hit, which, again, really hard time doing, he's also inconsistent here, where his best combo damage, his combo that he should do, is forward punch, jump punch. Forward punch is pretty, it hits a lot of the time. Jump punch, not so much. Sometimes it'll hit, sometimes it's not. Very inconsistent. You could also do some other moves, but I find those two as the best. And that's kind of why, it's not great damage because, again, jump punch doesn't work. But even if you get a 4-punch and jump punch, what do you do after this? Well, he has his shotgun blast. So, and that can hit characters if they roll, so you can read that out. It also hits mainly Destoroyah very easily, so you can get some good damage on Destoroyah, I will say that. Sometimes Orga, but it's a lot more iffy. But against everyone else, if they just armor get up, there's nothing Gigan can do. Because usually in this game, when opponent armor gets up, your general idea is either to try and punish them with a quick move that, hey, you know, maybe it's, you know, you block it, but it's safe, which is very rare for a lot of characters to have, or grab. So, again, or just maybe you walk away a little bit and try to go back into neutral. The problem with Gigan is that he only can go back into neutral. He has no way of, you know, resets, because again, his grab is very, very terrible. He doesn't really have a good, you know, shield mix-up game, because that one down fierce, which is his only low. Even back punch, which looks like a low, and it's slow, and would still be terrible, is not a low. So he has one low, one slow low, and that it makes him have a very hard time with block. So that's another problem. So, hey, he has a hard time getting in. He can't do much when he gets into the opponent. Well, maybe his disadvantage is good. No. When he is on his tummy up, he can be hit by a lot of moves that usually wouldn't, like a Godzilla jump kick will actually hit him. Not when he's on his back, at least, but still. And his get-up attack, while fast, you can grab him out of it before it comes out. He does have a get-up attack that does do that. He's not alone in that, but he does have that. And so it kind of makes it where he has a not great disadvantage overall. Not the worst in the game, but yeah, overall, not great. So you can kind of guess why that makes his matchup spread pretty bad overall. But his worst matchups for sure are the mechas, because he only has 3 blunt attacks, I want to say, and all of them again are slow. So he's not really getting, I guess jab isn't slow, but you're not really getting anything from jab in this game with most characters. So yeah, terrible character, by far the worst, in his own tier of bad. Gigan the Robot Chicken. So then we go up to C tier, because he's all in his lonesome in D, and we have Megalon. So Megalon is not good, but he does suffer from a lot of problems Megalon does, where his neutrals is not that good. But it is better than Megalon's. But he does kind of struggle really being aggressive. So he tends to be more of a passive character in the neutral, kind of waiting for your opponent to pressure him into being able to get an out of shield button, which honestly, his out of shield actually isn't too bad. It's pretty good. Back Fierce is very good at anti-air, in my opinion. And it's just a pretty decent button in general. He doesn't get a combo off it, but it does push his opponent away to get some damage. And then when he thinks he has the right moment, he can use his Napalm Bomb out of shield. And so how that really works and why it's very good, and the main reason he's above Gigan, is because of his Napalm Bomb damage. If he gets a Napalm Bomb and you are hit by it, and it's on the, and you're on the edge of it, so like the edge in front of him, and you have basically the whole circle behind you, he can do up fierce, and then it will reset your toe stub animation. Then he can walk into the Napalm Bomb, because the Napalm Bomb will be gone by then if he times it right, and then do a toe stub, and then you will be stunned again. He waits. By this time, he has another Napalm Bomb energy, if he had full energy when he did this. Shoots it again. Does another up fierce. Does another down kick for the toe stub. And then he could do forward punch, up punch, and jump punch. And that's about half health. So, and that's another thing, that M part with the forward punch, jump punch, up punch. That's another little combo he could do. Definitely not as much damage, of course, but still some decent damage. So he has other ways of getting damage that are actually consistent in a way. But, again, you do have to get your opponent in that certain specific part of the Napalm Bomb, because if you don't, it will not work. But when he gets it, at least he gets some serious damage when he does get his win condition, which Gigan does not have. So that's really a positive for him. The only other positive I can really give him is that... Oh, and Jump Punch is the best move. His best move, probably. Napalm Bomb is very good, but Jump Punch, one of them at least, is very fast and knocks down the opponent. Do not think that Jump Punch is a bad move, because it is very, very good. And it's definitely his best move for OTG as well. He can get some decent damage from that. But other than those two things, the one other positive I can give him is his disadvantage. So he can be hit by some smaller hitboxes sometimes, but he does have the best get-up attack in the game by far in his tummy up get-up attack, where he flips up. That is so fast that combos that would usually work against another opponent don't really work against him sometimes. I guess they could armor get-up, but that's a little bit more, I read your armor get-up, I can do this. Yeah, you can't do that against Gigan get-up attack, and then sometimes you can even get a jump punch on it for a little bit of combo there. So a very, very good get-up attack. But then we have to go into his problems. So one, again, for him to get his damage, he does have to get the Napalm Bomb in a certain position, which is very hard to do. Not impossible, but it is very hard. His neutral, other than being fairly passive, is pretty bad. He doesn't really have great aggression, so opponents that are zoners, which are some of the best characters in the game, he can really struggle with. And then the final thing is his blunt weakness. So that makes moves like an Orga jab is the best example, one of them. That wouldn't knock an opponent down normally. Now just knocks him in the air and he just flies across the screen. Another example is King Ghidorah, Mecha King Ghidorah neutral kick. Again, doesn't knock opponents down. Usually knocks him down and they get a neutral right off of it. So he has to be very careful because of that. He also takes more damage from that. So overall, he has a very lower health bar than other characters, especially when you're playing a character that has a lot more blunt damage. It is a more blunt-based character. So, yeah, that's kind of my reason to put him here. His damage really does save him from that D tier. Again, if Gigan had more consistent damage, he would probably be put in C tier. I don't know if I put him higher than Megalon, but at least he would be there. But that damage really does save Megalon from being the worst character in the game, and able to be a tier above Gigan. So, yeah. Another thing about Gigan I think I forgot to mention as well is that his teleport, you can block everything from behind. So even that is not good. Got to mention that. Just keep that in mind. You can block every single move that he does from his teleport. So even that's useless. Just a point. Basically useless. Just a point. Then we have B tier. Now we finally have one because there's no other character in C tier in my opinion. We finally have so in B tier, do I talk about him? I'm going to talk about him. So Kiru I wasn't sure if I'm going to talk about. And the reason why I've never played opponents with Kiru, because, when we do competitive, when we play, online, we use the American GameCube version. So he is not in the American GameCube version, but I have played him, mainly in the Xbox version, so I know kind of his general idea. And, of course, I've seen people play him in GameCube as well, and all that. But he's in C tier, so his main problem... Now, he doesn't have as good damage as Megalon, but he has a way better neutral. I'll give him that, for the most part. Just because of his, his armor, He has jump kick that can help a little bit, but he still has a terrible neutral. This is, again, an educated guess. Like, he could be here. He could even be there. But I'm just going to put him here for now. I'll have a more definitive answer once the remaster comes out. But the main problem he has is... I'm just going to talk about MechaGodzilla 2 at the same time. MechaGodzilla 2 is here at the bottom of B tier. The problem is... The main thing that makes MechaGodzilla 2 even good, to be in B tier, he still has problems, which we'll get to, but is his plasma grenade. It gives him some pretty decent neutral. A very mid-neutral, but it's not the worst in the game at all. And they take that away, because the main reason he has that is his plasma grenade, and Kiru doesn't have that. He has more more physical attacks, which, let me tell you, for the most part, weapon attacks are just better to have in this game. The more, usually the better for the character. So you're taking away a character's best aspect and putting it on a character to be more physical. But the problem is, again, he's supposed to be a mid-range fighter. And so you're giving a character who now has to be all close range a mid-range fighter's attacks. And you see why that's kind of problematic? Yeah, very, very bad. So I don't think he's that good. So would I say he's worse than Megalon? I'm not sure. Again, it is an educated guess. But I know for a fact I probably would not put him B tier. Definitely not better than MechaGodzilla 2. But for now, I'm going to put him at the top of C. Do not use this character. Let's go into a little bit more of, well, I mean, I guess you could use him, but I wouldn't, because you have this MechaGodzilla 2, who will be MechaGodzilla 1 in the remaster, who is just better in every way. So, MechaGodzilla 2, though, we can get a little more detail here. He does have two good physical attacks, being his neutral kick, not being super safe, but it's fairly fast. And you could space a little bit, but mostly jump kick is pretty good, and back kick, which again is pretty fast, but not safe. And none of physical attacks are safe, but those are fairly decent. But the main reason he's good is because, again, his plasma grenade. So you can use a crouch cancel to actually spam this pretty well, to keep opponents, especially these bottom three, and some other characters as well, out of where they want to go. So he has that going for him. But the main thing is his damage. So his damage, other than neutral, like his neutral is really where he gets most of his damage, just by poking you, because the only thing he can really do when you hit someone on the ground is jump kick. One jump kick, and that's kind of it. He does have a pretty hard to mash out of grab, and then you could do fierce grab, and then do a neutral kick for some decent damage, I suppose, but really his main problem, is that his OTG is the worst in the game. Kiru, I believe, does have it a little bit better, but again, it's just that neutral does not make up for it at all, and that's why I have to put him there. But overall, still, that is problematic. Again, he does have that very, very good, edge resistance, a very, very good edge resistance. But, again, you just can't really rely on just having a resistance to say this character is A tier or S tier. It helps him, that's for sure, but again, not so great. But it's really just his damage that is why he's down here. That's really his main weakness. But again, not a terrible character. If you want to use a MechaGodzilla, though, definitely use this one over Kiru. Next to him, I thought about this pretty hard, and I think I just have to make the decision to put the Godzillas here. Yeah. Alright, so there's not a lot of differences between the Godzillas. Okay, look, there's not a lot of differences between the Godzillas. However, the differences do count where 90s is definitely better. So, the differences is Godzilla 90s has a better beam, way more damage. But 90s has the better beam, but 2000s has slightly faster normals. And I mean very, very slightly. So I was like, okay. So depending on the matchup, one or other might be better. But the thing that makes 90s absolutely better is he has the best hitbox in the game. I don't know what it is, but moves will just not hit him out of nowhere. And it's kind of like, okay, I do this move that should hit, it doesn't, basically. So it makes a lot of moves whiff on him, and that is very, very good. And then I think the better beam in this game might be better just because he is a close range fighter. And when you have that kind of close range, you need to deal with zoners a lot because, spoiler alert, they are some of the best characters in the game. And that better beam to just deal more damage, I think, is more useful in those matchups. So that's why I have to say he's a little bit better. Just because he has a little bit, even though it's still bad matchups, has a little bit of a better time against, the top tiers. Even though it's still bad matchups. So, and then of course that really weird hitbox is why I have to put him there. But the reason why they're mid-tier, and I did think they were bottom of A for a while, but I think I've just kind of had to come to the decision of they are good in the right hands. I've seen them used very, very well, but they just struggle so hard against so many of the characters in this game. The Ghidorahs, I would say they even struggle really hard against MechaGodzilla 2, not as much Kiru, but MechaGodzilla 2. Orga, Rodan, Anguirus, Destoroyah is actually probably about even, but still not. So they probably win 3 matchups. I'm maybe go even with Kiru. I'm again not too sure, but maybe they beat Kiru. But honestly, they might only win against themselves about even, and then Megalon and Gigan. Every other matchup they struggle. So I have to kind of think, okay, they have these good attributes, but then, they lose all these matchups. Maybe, again, and even with Destoroyah, which is pretty good. I will give them that. But it's just those matchups can be so, so very hard, and that's kind of why I have to put them here. Their damage is pretty good. They have a pretty decent advantage where, sure, their damage against most characters is just forward punch, jump punch, and then trying to read your opponent, but they do have a pretty good grab that if your opponent's not ready for it, they could use. They have a very good jab cancel to knock the opponent down. They have good stuff. It's just that this game is so, projectile based and energy based and long range based that they can just really struggle with a lot of matchups. That kind of makes me have to put them down here. But they are still pretty good. If you want to play the Godzillas, go for it. You just have to be a master of your craft to really get a lot out of this character. But if you want to do it, go for it. So we are now in A tier. And for our first character here at the bottom of A, we have Orga. Orga is a very interesting character. I have actually, with the past couple weeks, have been labbing Orga. And what I have kind of found with this character, with some help, is that he actually is pretty dumb when it comes to a lot of stuff. I would say he's probably one of the hardest characters to play in the game, I will say that. But that I do not put against the character. It is a huge pet peeve of mine when someone says, this character is worse because he's harder. Nope. I do not agree with that kind of idea. But the thing with him is that you, in the right scenario, if he gets one hit on you, you're taking half health a lot of the time. it can mess up sometimes because back kick can be a little weird and back fierce can be a little weird because of the camera, the screen, but overall you're taking about half health. And that is crazy. But even when you're done, he is probably the best character in the game at resetting combos to get another half health and then you're dead. You can take so much damage from this character from one neutral interaction. And I would say, while his neutral isn't as good as like the Zoner characters or Destoroyah or anything like that, of course, oh boy, it's a pretty decent neutral. It is better than the Godzillas in my opinion, just because again, jab is pretty safe. Neutral kick is pretty good at getting in. Back fierce is an amazing tool and actually has a weird thing where out of shield, or if you do a certain amount of inputs, you can actually like rebound back into your opponent and then get a true up punch, and then you're in a great position to again get a full combo. This character just doesn't have too many bad things about him. I mean, even his he does have weaknesses, but like his main one just being he struggles against the zoners, I will say that. But even when he's on the ground, when he's in disadvantage, his hitbox is really weird. And just in general, he's kind of like Godzilla 290s, where some things will just miss on him, but his back has a huge hitbox. So it's more 50-50. He probably, where sometimes he will take every single hit in the book, but then other times he won't get hit at all. So even on disadvantage. So his disadvantage actually isn't, while definitely not the best in the game. Just because his get-up attack is really bad. It's not as bad as I think a lot of people think. Because again, so many moves just won't hit him. His grab, like the Godzillas, which by the way the Godzilla's grab are very hard to mash out of unless you know it's coming. His grab is, even when you know it's coming, is really hard to mash out of. So luckily for him, he can really do that grappler archetype. He also has a very long grab, so he can just follow you when you're rolling, when you're on the ground. And then he could just wait until he thinks you're going to get up, grab, and then sometimes if they time it right, you can't jump, but there's nothing you can do about it. So he can then just get his combo and then just get half damage. And by the way, that half damage I'm mentioning is with my rule set where he can't do his combos infinitely because it is a full-on infinite. But even with it, he can still get half damage, and that's where I think he stands. Yeah, he's basically just the Godzillas, but if you take a little bit of their speed, but honestly not by much because his burst range is really good anyway. If you take a little bit of that, I guess movement away, but again, better burst range with back fierce and neutral kick. But you replace it with safer moves in general and way better damage, and you give him goo, which leads to true combos a lot of the time. So, and I guess worse, he doesn't have the best aerial attack. You don't really see them that often. But it's alright because he can still deal with aerial opponents, like other than Rodan, of course, but we'll get to that in a minute. Very well. So, yeah, if you want to have a character that's just really good at close range, Orga's definitely the best at that, but he does take time to learn. But if you take that time, it does have a lot of positive effects for you as a player, and I think he is definitely the best close range brawler in the game by a decent amount, in my opinion. So, next up we have Rodan the Bird. I put Rodan here very, very specifically because I want you to look at every single other character on this list that is below him. Rodan beats all of those characters without a doubt. For all of those characters, Rodan is probably one of, or is probably for most of them, or all of them, their worst matchup. They cannot do basically anything against Rodan. Maybe Orga can get a very risky goo, or maybe you can charge a mid-charge beam every once in a while, but that's kind of it. Because Rodan can fly infinitely, gain his energy, and be a little camper, and then beam, 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 run around, will fly around, get it a little bit more, beam, 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 and they can't do anything because their anti-airs aren't good enough. And so as long as you are a Rodan player that will stick to the bit and just camp the entire game, yeah, they can't do anything about it. They're done. That's it. You win against all those characters. But everyone above Rodan beats him terribly and makes him look like a terrible, terrible character. So that's kind of the thing. Everyone under him, he beats very well, but everyone above him, he loses to very well. But he does have some other things, other than just his camping game that is stupid. His grab is the best in the game because it's basically impossible to mash out of. I think I've only mashed out of that grab once, and I've only seen that once when I did it. But you know, another good thing about him is his back fierce is unblockable. It does not do damage, but you can, depending on your opponent's mash, either get another hit on him, or even maybe just a true jump fire beam. But you know, even that, still good pressure. He also has a decent block mix-up game with some pretty good lows, like his roundhouse kick, his down fierce, you know, just some pretty good stuff there. But his main problem is, one, he is weak to edged attacks, and two, just having a really, really low health pool in general. So you have to be very careful when you're being aggressive, and honestly, you won't see that stuff I mentioned that often, just because when you're really wanting to play this character at his best at a competitive level, you're really just going to be camping the whole game to keep out your opponents. So, unfortunately, that's just kind of how he is, but yeah, I will put him here. But there is a thing that keeps him from being the best, and again, it is every character above here destroys him, and a lot of these are very popular picks. But against everyone else, yeah, you could just go Rodan, beam, 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 fly away. So, it's very, very dumb. Our final character in A tier is Anguirus. So, Anguirus, honestly, feels a lot like MechaGodzilla 2 to me in some ways, in kind of how they play. They both like to put up a wall. And of course, MechaGodzilla 2 with Plasma Grenade, and Anguirus with his Sonic Roar. Now, his Sonic Roar, in my opinion, is the best charge beam in the game, you know, just where you're charging it and shooting it. Best in the game. It does not have the best range, but that doesn't really matter as much as you'd think, just for the fact that it stuns your opponent. It gets a lot of range very quickly, so you barely have to charge it. The charge version is pretty bad. Full charge is pretty bad, just because, you know, just doesn't really do much for him. But that very low charge is amazing, and you can just spam that over and over and over again. Really, really annoying. Only a few characters in this game can really beat that. Honestly, I think the only one who can really for sure do well against him are the Ghidorahs. I think he actually does pretty well against Destoroyah. But you know, so yeah, very, very good neutral. This is GameCube exclusive, but this is mostly a GameCube list. But he does have a down fierce cancel where you can do down fierce and then do a building grab. Which, if anyone doesn't know, is when you hold the left trigger and then do a pickup, grab, will actually only pick up buildings. But what's nice about that is it actually cancels his down fierce and allows him to get an OTG combo, which we'll get to his in a minute. But another really good thing about him is just how he definitely has the best shield in the game. It stuns a lot of opponents unless you have a sharp resistance. It does damage, allows for combos, and his low block is literally his run. So it beats high attacks, it beats lows. It's really, really dumb. Definitely the best block in the game, for sure. So a lot of good stuff. Even his disadvantage is actually very good. When he is on his tummy up, though, he does get hit by a decent amount of stuff. And not a lot of ways to protect him, but a lot of the time, you're really going to see those sharp back spiny up. And when that happens, there's not much you can really do against him. His get up attack, while not being the best, is fairly fast. So it's definitely not the worst. It's mainly those spikes that really keep him from having a bad disadvantage and lets him have a very, very good disadvantage for the most part. Another thing that is kind of weird is that in a right position, maybe when you get a forward punch, you can actually use the Sonic Roar to like vacuum in, and then you could get a full combo. That's another way. So a lot of good stuff. But his main problem is damage. He has very, very bad damage. Some of the worst OTG in the game. And you can kind of see why I kind of compared him to Mechagodzilla 2 a little bit. But he is definitely a way better version than him. Just because, one, he deals with Rodan a lot better because his Sonic Roar knocks Rodan out of the sky. His roar gets the opponent in a hazed state where they are stunned, and just a lot of other stuff. And then I would still say he has a better OTG in general, but still not a lot of damage with just that down punch into Fierce twice. But it's not nothing. Another problem with him is that he has one of the easiest to mash out grabs in the game, and overall his grab game is not great. He doesn't really have a grab that he can get any combos from like Rodan, but unlike Rodan, again, it's very, very easy to mash out of. So, that's not too good. But still, overall, very good defensive character, the best defensive character in the game. Him or Rodan, depending on what you want to call defense. For camping, definitely Rodan, but just for active defending, with blocking and all that, definitely Anguirus. So yeah, if you want to play a defensive character, go for Anguirus, for sure. But he is our final A tier, just for the fact, again, his damage not being the best. And finally, we have our S tier, our top 3 characters in the game by far. Now, the first character I want to talk about is Destoroyah. So the thing about Destoroyah is he is very, very good at bringing the opponent in to where he wants to go, where he wants him to be. With his orbs, which are very, very good, obviously. And he wants the opponent in close. But I also wouldn't call him necessarily a close range brawler. Because again, his Horn Katana allows him to go very mid-range. He is decent close range. But in that neutral, it's a little bit rough for him. Not really, not terribly. But if you're playing other characters, like, he doesn't have the same kind of offense is kind of what I'm trying to say here. Without energy anyway, but he does have some things like his jump attacks, like jump, fierce, jump punch. Those are very good moves for that scenario. But he is not the best with that, but that doesn't really matter too much, because again, he does have the Horn Katana, which is very, very good, and gives him very, very good mid-range. But more importantly is the orbs, like I mentioned. The orbs, other than just bringing your opponent in, like I said before, what makes them really good is that when they bring you in, they hit the opponent still. And when anyone is hit by a weapon attack in this game, you'll notice that they can actually, they will actually lose their block for a minute. Like, you'll knock them out of the block. Not a lot of characters can really use that. The Godzillas can sometimes get an uppercut, but it's kind of iffy. That's mainly the other example I can think of. But Destoroyah abuses this heavily. And the way he does that is he uses the orb, and then when the opponent loses their block during that time, he'll do jump punch, making jump punch a true unblockable. And so when you get that unblockable, he can then just shoot another orb, jump punch when you're on the ground, because if you try and roll away, the orb will bring you back. So jump punch, jump punch, jump punch. Orb, jump punch. So that's really what's good about him, is that damage right there with the OTG. His advantage is what I'm trying to get at, is really, really good. Another thing you can use there is down fierce, which is highly, highly underrated. Because, sure, it's not as fast as up fierce, but it uses such little energy and does also hit on OTG that it's just such a good move. and you should use it often in that kind of scenario as well for a little bit of a mix-up. He also has a grab, which while you can mesh out of it, it is on the harder end to do so, so he can use it a decent amount. He doesn't really get combos off his grab, but his fierce grab throws the opponent so far away, a lot of the time they will hit the barrier to allow him to get combos, so that is pretty good for him. He definitely has... Yeah, he definitely has an overall best OTG damage in the game. The only characters that can really fight with him for the best damage in the game is Megalon and Orga, but their ways of getting it are very different. Of course, Megalon, it's with the Napalm Bomb combos, and Orga, it's with the grab juggle combos. But he is definitely the best for OTG damage. And he can definitely get some mix-ups as well, of course, again with the grab, maybe even go for risky toast-up, a lot of things you can do with the orb on OTG. So, why is he not better than the Ghidorahs? Why is he, because spoiler alert, they're better, why is he in this in third instead of, higher? Well, it really comes down to his disadvantage, because again, his neutral, very, very good. He can deal with basically every character in the game. I mean, again, with the orbs, with the mid-range, you get the point. And of course, like I said before, his advantage is one of the best in the games. Is arguably the best, I can see some people say. I'm not sure if I would agree with that, but it's definitely up there. Him or Orga. Depends on who you ask. But at least for me. Well, him, Orga, or I guess... Yeah, those two. But the main problem, again, is his disadvantage. He has a decent get-up attack. It's not terrible, but you can definitely see it coming. And that's not the problem. It is his hitbox. He has the worst hitbox in the game. It is huge. So, yeah, I mean, that also comes into play when he's standing because he can get hit by some things easier, but on OTG you really feel it. So every move that can sometimes hit Orga will always hit him. So Godzilla's, if they know it right, instead of just getting a forward punch jump punch or maybe a fireball back punch jump punch, they can get a forward punch jump kick, forward punch jump kick into a true fireball into another forward punch jump kick for 2 times the damage or so. So a lot of characters can just deal basically Orga specific combos, or at least they work the best on Orga. Sorry, on Destoroyah, not Orga. Destoroyah specific combos, and that can definitely make him struggle once he is in that disadvantage. The other reason he is only third is that he is not the Ghidorahs. We'll get to why I say that's why he's not, better. Why he's not the Ghidorahs, which sounds weird, but it'll make sense. Trust me. But yeah, that's Destoroyah. If you want to play a high damage character, basically if you like one of the heavies, like Donkey Kong and Smash Brothers or something, you'll probably like Destoroyah. Or Orga, I guess. But yeah, so pick Destoroyah if you like him. He's good. Very, very good. Now, there is one thing I do have to say, though, is that I think Destoroyah is the only S tier. That is because I have to make another tier. And that's S+. And so, the reason why I have to make S+ is for the Ghidorahs. The Ghidorahs are by far the best characters in the game. Which one you say is better? I think it's very close. I lean towards maybe Mecha. It's very close. But let's get into that. So I believe that they are the best because of one thing. Well, not one thing. There's a lot of good things, but one big thing, the biggest thing, is Jump Beam. Jump Beam is basically the best move in the game. I mean, I guess you could say maybe Mecha Ghidorah tasers, but you only have 3 of those. I'm talking about regular moves. Jump Beam is the best button in the game. It allows you to just win. It makes the opponent cause pressure. It causes pressure on the opponent. It does insane damage, even when blocked. It's fast, has good range. It has a wide hitbox, so it's hard to miss. It's just the perfect projectile move. And that is a big reason why they are up here. But there are other reasons. So, each one of these characters has a resistance. You know, of course, original has resistance to blunt, and Mecha has resistance to sharp or edged. I would say it's matchup specific which one's better. But again, having a resistance in this game is very good. It's not, you know, just having a resistance makes you a great character, but it does help a lot. And it can really make some matchups very hard for some characters. They also have upfierce. So, the Ghidorahs, mostly specifically, Mecha has to play this playstyle, but regular Ghidorah can be more aggressive, but they are technically supposed to be zoners, you can kind of tell, and Up Fierce is a very good move. It's very close to being their best move, but I think Jump Beam just barely beats it out. But Up Fierce is broken because it does a little bit of damage. I don't think it does damage in the Xbox version, but even if it didn't, it would still be broken. It does a little bit of damage on the GameCube version, though. It pushes your opponent back, but it also pushes you back. And you can imagine how dumb that is as a zoner character. But the thing is, they can spam it. So any character that tries to run in, Up Fierce, Up Fierce, Up Fierce, Up Fierce, Up Fierce, Up Fierce. That is hard to say at free time. I don't know why. But very, very, it's very hard to get into them. Even if they had Jump Beam, it would be hard. But with just Jump Beam, but Up Fierce makes it almost impossible unless you have some good projectiles or something to pressure them. So, the best zoning in the game. They also do have another way to push you back, and that is Jump Fierce. Jump Fierce is a wind gust, it pushes them back. That is very good when you get your opponent on OTG. Now, this is one of the big differences between the characters. Mecha Ghidorah has the worst OTG in the game. I know I said that Mecha Godzilla did, I think. But no. He's as bad. It's not great, but Mecha Godzilla is his worst. Worst OTG in the game. By far, by a good amount. However, it doesn't really matter because, one, very good combo damage with down fears. Because you can do down fears, forward punch, or neutral kick, whichever one you want, into jump beam, and that does huge damage. So, Mecha Ghidorah, both Ghidorahs can do that. So they're both fine on damage. But the other reason is because one of the moves that does hit, while it doesn't do a lot of damage, is Jump Fierce. And Jump Fierce pushes the opponent back, putting them far away from you, and allowing for, well, more zoning with the zoning character. So, yeah, the Ghidorahs have very, very good zoning, and are very good at pushing the opponent away. But I did say earlier that regular Ghidorah can be more aggressive. Well, one of the reasons for that is, again, the OTG. So, regular Ghidorah's best button on OTG is back punch. And it does hit on OTG, obviously, to be an OTG move. But Mecha Ghidorah's back punch, for whatever reason, does not hit OTG. So, you lose a very good OTG button there. The only other ones that you have, other than the up fierce I mentioned, is up kick, which is really slow, so you barely get that unless your opponent hits a barrier, then you could do it. Or down kick, which, yeah. Another reason why regular Ghidorah's OTG is better is actually Jump Beam. So, regular Ghidorah's Jump Beam is actually way better than Mecha's. And there's two reasons. Of course, one of them is OTG. Mechas, when you shoot the opponent when they're on OTG on the ground, does not flinch them. They don't bounce up in the air a little bit and are hit stunned. They just take the damage. But regular Ghidorah, the jump beam actually does flinch them. And it does enough hit stun that you can actually land on the ground right after it safely. And if the character is bigger, and when I mean bigger, more wider, like Rodan, Orga, Destoroyah, you can actually get a back punch even if they roll. So it's very good mostly against the more wider characters, not so much characters like Godzilla. More with those, you're just going to use back punch a lot, which is still good. But again, just having that ability to use the flinch anyway for that mix-up is also very nice. And again, Mecha Ghidorah can't do that. I'll get into the other reason why the beams are better now, and this also leads to why regular Ghidorah can be so much more aggressive, and is just the better character, but Mecha Ghidorah has tasers in my opinion, but again, we'll get to that after this in a minute, is that, so when you do the jump beam close to an opponent, it allows regular Ghidorah to do, it'll actually hit is what I'm getting at. It'll hit the opponent, it'll knock him away, and then you'll be safe. But with Mecha, sometimes it'll hit. Most of the time, it will hit, but again, like when you hit an opponent on OTG, it will not knock them away or give them hit stun, and you'll be punished. Forcing, again, Mecha Ghidorah to be in that more far-away playstyle. But the reason why it's so good with regular Ghidorah is that regular Ghidorah can do a forward punch, a back punch, be a little bit aggressive in that neutral, and then can just do jump beam. And unless your name is Destoroyah, who can punish that, because Destoroyah does the best against these characters, except for themselves. He does do pretty decent against them. Still not, I don't know if I'd say it's a winning matchup, but it's maybe against Mecha, definitely not regular. But unless you're playing a Destoroyah player, there's not much you can really do, because again, those moves are jump cancelable, and, well, the beam knocks them so far away. So basically, regular Ghidorah, again, unless you're playing against a Destoroyah, can make any jump cancelable move actually entirely safe, which no character in the game can do. No other character. Not even really Mecha, because it barely ever works. He can do it consistently, allowing him to use that zoning I've mentioned before and that good aggression together to become a really amazing character. Now, if there's all these the reasons that regular Ghidorah is better, why is Mecha up here with him to even be on par with the regular Ghidorah? To be on the same level. So, the reason why is because of the tasers. That is the only reason, I'm going to be honest with you. The tasers, you only have 3 every round, but you hit the opponent, they're unblockable, and it stuns, takes away all their energy, which is really important, and you get a full combo. Which again, these characters do a lot of damage from combos, and is the main way of damage for Mecha Ghidorah. So that is really the only reason. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about the shield? The shield's actually a bad thing for Mecha Ghidorah, I'm going to be honest. And the reason why is because, think about it this way. If you watch the tournaments, if you were there, or when I eventually send them on the channel, you don't see a lot of beam unless maybe, of course, Anguirus, who does a lot, and then sometimes with the Godzillas, because that's just how they can do some pressure. But other than that, you don't really see the charge beams, which is really the only time you would ever block the beam and then heal from it. So you don't really heal that much, because again, the other moves that, are energy based are just so fast that you're not gonna read them most of the time, and then you're just gonna take extra damage, because if you don't know, because of the healing property, you take extra damage if you get hit by them. And that happens a lot more than healing. One good thing about the shield, though, is that it does block high and lows. That's pretty nice, but again, it's not enough in my opinion, especially when the energy is so great. It takes so much energy away from MechaGhidorah, and MechaGhidorah needs that energy for the jump beams. So this character's energy regeneration is really bad because of that. You're going to have so little energy a lot of the time, because if anyone even dares to charge a beam on you and you have to block it, if you don't have the energy, you lose all the rest of the energy you have, you know? So, and even if you're just blocking a non-energy move, you're using so much energy. And even if you're running back or low blocking, which doesn't take away energy, you're not gaining energy. So that's pretty bad. If the character did not have tasers, this would not be a discussion on who's better. Regular Ghidorah would absolutely be the better character. So if, hopefully, the tasers are nerfed in the remaster, Regular Ghidorah will be top 1 by far. But as it stands now, I think it's fairly even because of how broken the tasers are. They are unblockable. They go through most moves. They give you a full combo and take away all their energy. Nothing else I can really say there. I want to go into a video. I want to make a video going more in depth on these characters and talking about why I think it's more close. I did kind of do that here, but I want to do it even more in that video and show it off a little bit better. But yeah, so these two are the best characters in the game. I even, after having them legal in tournaments for a little while, I decided that it was best to ban them, so they are now banned. That is how good they are. So, yeah. But that is my tier list. Let me know what you think. I am very excited for the remaster, so get ready for more Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee content from me. Yeah, so have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.